Kyle Nedner here from the Indy Star, and just wanted to talk a little bit of high school football tonight. Getting set for the week one of the high school football season on Friday night, and a lot of good games. It's going to be a fun night of football. I haven't checked the weather to see what what that looks like exactly. We had a couple tough nights last year, obviously with cancellations. I know week two was one of them. And I want to say week 4 or 5, we had games delayed and pushed off until Saturday. So hopefully none of that this year. That seems to come maybe once every other year. So hopefully that's the case again this year. We'll be in the clear. But on Friday night, we'll have predictions. Might be out even by the time you listen to this or watch this. But we do have some really good games right off the bat tomorrow or Friday night. Depending on when you listen to this. I would say, it's hard to say. The premier matchup, I guess it'll yet to be seen, or we'll find out on Friday what it ends up being. But certainly a big game. The defending state champs in Class 6A Brownsburg host Archbishop Spalding out of Maryland, and that name might not mean people aren't familiar with that, obviously, being a Maryland school, but a national team that's won 3 championships in a row out in Maryland. They have a lot of talent. Obviously, to go undefeated and win state championships, it takes a lot of talent. But they've got a lot of talent on that team. Speed, traditionally pretty good defensive team, really good defensive team. Brownsburg, of course, returns a lot on offense, so that should be a fun matchup. I think the Brownsburg defense too is going to be pretty good. They're just maybe a little bit lesser known players at this point with the graduations they had on that side of the ball last year. But Oscar Fry, quarterback, who played a lot as a sophomore, very good player. Avon Robinson and Brandon Sharp at receiver. 3 really good running backs for Brownsburg. I think it's going to be a fun game. Archbishop Spalding has a cornerback who's committed to Florida State, Sean Johnson. Miles McAfee, a junior receiver who's a 4-star prospect. A young lineman who's a 4-star prospect as well, a sophomore. Bryce Smalls, and then Cam Miller, who has offers from Maryland, Penn State, and a host of others, who's an athletic kind of an athlete type player, receiver, can play a lot of different spots. So very, very good team. They are ranked. You take these national rankings, with a grain of salt to a certain degree. It's hard to, I think, and I know people put time into these, so it's not like, they're not working on these, but it's hard to judge state to state, I would say, unless the states play each other a lot, like Ohio and Indiana or Kentucky. But at any rate, Archbishop Spalding, they are 37 in the on-3 composite rankings, which takes into account several different rankings. Brownsburg's 39, so both teams in the top 40 in the country. High School Football America has them ranked 34 and 49 respectively. So, those are just a couple of just viewpoints, I guess, on what they are nationally ranked. But that should be a really good game. And then, 4 or 5 others, Carmel, Center Grove at Warren Central. Carmel, Center Grove, they'll resume their rivalry next year. They're not playing this year in the regular season, but they will be on the schedule in the future. Copper Kettle coming back. But yeah, Center Grove at Warren. This is, and I did these videos on the Indy Star, so you can watch my picks on there and little previews. But that should be a really good matchup. To me, Center Grove a really contender to win the 6A state title this year. Ben Davis is playing Cathedral at Butler, Carmel at Fishers, Decatur Central at Avon. I'm very interested to see how that game goes. Lafayette Jeff, Bishop Chatard, I think will be a fun game, interesting game. And you see a lot of new games on the schedule this year too, like that Lafayette Jeff Chatard game, or Carmel Fishers. Some different openers than we've had. Decatur Central Avon, a little bit different of a game too than we've seen, and then some old rivalries. LC and LN play each other. I think that game's moving back in the season again. This is, I think, just a couple year deal where it's the first game of the season. Last I've heard on that, but Pike Zionsville has been a game we've seen a lot lately. Danville Gibson Southern, I think, could be a really good game down at Gibson Southern. 2 teams ranked in the top 10. Gibson Southern in 3A, Danville in 4A. So that was a really good game last year. So yeah, there's a lot of good games. We'll get into the results and everything Friday night. As those scores roll in, and then break it all down. I wanted to get into the state rankings a little bit too that came out, and did a Super 25 that kind of looked at takes into account all of the teams in the state and in ranking any class. And just to get into that a little bit, and I touched on some of these teams, just in leading up to the Week 1 games, but. I did have Brownsburg number 1. I think they've earned the right to be there after winning state last year, and the guys that they have coming back, especially on offense. Like I said, I think they've earned that right to be number 1. Going in until proven differently. Obviously there is some inexperience on defense, and I think that would be, what people would look at if they would, not put them number 1. But at this point, even though, all those games were close last year in the tournament, they were, it took a lot to win all of those games in a row. But I think that shows the kind of the moxie and toughness of a team. To be able to do that. But, now can you do that with the target on your back? That's kind of the question for all defending champions, but especially in 6A where it's just so hard to win back-to-back. One team that has done that recently is Center Grove, and I had them number 2. I think that's going to be a really a tough team this year. I think they'll be better than last year. I think their offensive line and defensive lines both just a little bit more experienced and mature and stronger. And then I'm curious what Oscar Sloan, their quarterback, sophomore, has a lot of offers already. How he looks in in that Week 1 game against Warren, which has a good defense. Obviously, a very talented team. So I had them number 2, and then overall I had New Pal. When you're looking at all the teams in the state, I had them number 3, and they're a 5A school now after winning 4A last year, moving up one rung on the ladder, and they have 18 starters back. Kyle Ralph, his team will be very good on both sides of the ball. They open up with Kokomo, so they play Kokomo Week 1, and then a huge test at Decatur Central in Week 2. So, I've got the Dragons number 3 when you're doing a Super 25 or a 25 throughout the state. I had Westfield 4. I think they're going to be a real contender to get back to the state finals, even though they did lose a lot from last year. They still have a very good offensive line. Deacon King can play both sides of the ball. We'll have a new quarterback, so that's always something to look at. But yeah, I just think as a program, they're just really in a good place, I think. Very solid year in, year out. Josh Miracle came in, and it was kind of a seamless transition from Jay Gilbert to Josh. So, they've kept things rolling. I know they were disappointed they didn't get that state title last year, but we're right there at the end of the game. And a team they could be seeing down the road in the semi-state is Crown Point. I had them 5. Crown Point has really ramped it up here in the last 3 years, 35-3. They do play Pike in the non-conference this year. That's Week 2. So they play a team down here. That'll be interesting to see against a Pike team. I think is going to be, again, a lot better, more difficult test than they have been maybe in years past. A team that's getting better and better. Lawrence North, I had 6, and I thought about putting them higher, but they did lose that really good senior class. And you look at the defense, a lot of guys graduated from that side of the ball. The offense will have a new quarterback, but also when you can turn and hand the ball off to Isavion Moore, that's usually a pretty good recipe for the Wildcats. And then Monsoon Sales at receiver, 6'4", 6'5", a 4-star prospect. So definitely they still have some weapons even beyond those two. So I think they're going to be really good again. And like I said, they open up with LC, and then they. And let's see who they play. Fishers. Yeah, I knew they had. So Fishers and East Central, they have 3 home games in a row, LC, Fishers, and East Central. So those will be pretty good tests. I think all 3 of those teams are going to be pretty good. So we'll see if they can come out of that unscathed. Then they have a little bit easier. They have North Central and Tech, and then Ben Davis in Week 6. So, could again be, potentially a really good season for LN. I don't know if it's, another undefeated regular season is in the cards, but I think they're going to be pretty tough. Decatur Central, mentioned, have them number 7. Can they make the jump to 6A? That's kind of the question this year. Bo Polston, Casimir Hicks, both back. A lot of other guys back as well. I think the biggest question probably there is the depth. You make the jump from 5A to 6A, or any team that makes a jump in classes, it's just harder to do, especially 6A, where most teams aren't playing both sides of the ball. Until you get to the game, the do or die games sometimes, but a lot of times you're playing one way. And Decatur Central does have guys who play both ways, and just the overall depth of a team is just, when you're 5A, you just don't have as many players or as many, just overall people in your school. So that's something when you're making the jump, the success factor, sometimes that factors in when that happens for situations like this. But yeah, Decatur I think is going to be really good. Early test against Avon week 1. Avon's going to be good, I think, so that'll be a tough one for the Hawks. And we'll see how good they really are this season playing 6A. Cathedral I had them number 8. Again, think they're going to be really good. Again, strong up front. Cam Kors, their quarterback, a year of experience under his belt. Xavier Dangerfield at running back. So, just a really solid team, I think, again. They open up with Ben Davis, like I said, at Butler on Friday night. I had Heritage Hills number 9, another team like two others, Decatur and New Pal, both moving up. Also Heritage Hills from 4A up to 4A from 3A, and with also a loaded roster. Jet Goldsberry and Tyler Ruxer. Really good team. Heritage Hills will be certainly a factor in Class 4A. Warren Central I had number 10. It is admittedly a pretty tough team to read. They have 3 quarterbacks that they played in the scrimmage and were considering throughout the offseason. So see what happens there. Curious to get a look at Keon Thomas too at running back for Warren. He'll be a junior this year. But yeah, really, talented team, a new coach, JT Whitaker, talented team, but a lot of inexperience. 18 new starters this year. So anytime you're turning over like that, there's quite a bit of unknowns going into the year. So opening up with Center Grove probably not ideal when you're in that situation, but yeah, they'll play Warsaw, North Central, LC, some games that are just a little bit lesser than what you would get with Center Grove in the next 3 weeks. But yeah, I still think Warren by the end of the year, and when they're most likely going to be playing, a rematch against Center Grove, I think they'll be a lot better team by then as well. I had HSC 11, and some question marks for the Royals. As Mike Kelly said, they lost a lot on their offensive line. But they do get a jolt with Terry Walker coming in from LC as a senior quarterback. So I think they're going to be good. They have a lot of speed on defense, and they've just been a really solid program for these last several years, really, under Mike Kelly. So I think that'll be a team to watch as well, as they normally are. Chittard, I had 12, and kind of roll through these here a little bit. Chittard, I had 12. They are a 4A team, ranked number 1 in 4A, actually. Just ahead of Heritage Hills. Team that was on the cusp last year. If they could have beat New Pal in the regional, they lost in overtime by a touchdown. Who knows? They could have been holding the trophy at the end. So I had Chittard 12, Fishers 13. Obviously, the graduation of John Anthony Hall, tough to fill that hole. But Gage Sturgill, their quarterback, very good player, was hurt last year about midseason, couldn't return. But he is going to be a good one. Probably, if he would have played a full year, probably would have been our super team preseason and all that stuff. He's a name I think people will know about once the season gets going again. BD, I had number 14. I might have them a little bit low. I think this is a team that could be better than people think, and I would not be shocked if they could beat Cathedral on Friday. But yeah, I think that's going to be a good team. There are more players on this team that are probably a little bit of an unknown than other BD teams of the past, but that may have something to do with their, being 5 and 6 last year, slightly off the radar. But Kenneth Doss, Gabe Kennett, their 2 quarterbacks are very young. But yeah, I think they're going to be tough. Like I said, Cathedral first game at Butler. Merrillville 15. They were a 5A semi-state team last year. J.Q. Johnson ran for over 1,000 yards for them. So yeah, they're a team, and they'll play Crown Point in week 3. So that'll be a great test for the Pirates. East Central, I had 16. Think they're kind of back on the upswing again. They lost. They were 15-0 2 years ago. Won the 4A state championship. Lost in the regional last year to Decatur in a close game. So they were in the mix even still. It is kind of a young team after they graduated a lot from that 23 team. So they're in the mix again, playing in 5A for a second straight year by the success factor. Carmel, I had 17. One of the more interesting teams, I think, just because of the return of Kevin Wright as coach, but really a pretty talented group that he has, and we'll see kind of how it all fits together. It's a team that was really, you looked at them last year and their 3-7 record didn't really make sense, but they lost some players to injuries early. Played Westfield in a really close game in week 2. Lost that game, but still started 2-1, and then, like I said, injuries took a toll, and just some close losses that lost to Rebuff in a tough game, and then it kind of just went down from there. So we'll see. I think Carmel's got a chance to be quite a bit better. We'll see how much better. Pretty much right away. They play Fishers in week 1, and then Westfield in week 2. So two gauntlet team. Run the gauntlet early in the season there for Carmel. Pike, I had 18. Mentioned them earlier. Made the jump. Mike Brevard has gone from 1 win to 3 to 5. So they were 5-5 last year. Watched them beat Fishers on the road last year. That was a great win for them. We'll see. Again, play Zionsville opening week. Zionsville's been a team that's been able to beat these last couple of years. Defense has, there's definitely some graduation, holes there. But Michael Lewis, quarterback, Bobby Thomas, a running back. So they've got a lot of receivers who are very good. So I think there'll be a fun team to watch again this year. Franklin Central, kind of that sleeper team. They were 6-4 last year, got over 500 first time in a while. I think it was 7 years since they'd been over 500. Connor Moreland's a new quarterback, comes from Speedway, where he was a really good player. So now you see if he can make the jump from junior to senior year at a bigger school. So I think he can. I think he's got the ability to. And then Jace Brewer, wrote about him on Wednesday, but just a very, very dynamic athlete at defensive end. He's going to play some tight end as well. Has all kinds of offers. Just got USC this week. So just one of those unusual type players that just super, super talented. So we'll see what Franklin Central can do. Fort Wayne Carroll had number 20. And then the rest of the top 25, I had Roncalli 21. I think they're a team that's maybe a little under the radar that could do some damage. They played Chittard in a really tough game last year in the sectional title game. Lost in a close one. But Zach Dozier, Colin Ash return. A lot of defensive guys back. Columbus North, I had 22. Asher Ratliff, their star quarterback. They did lose a lot, though, from last year's 8-2 team. So they lost to Chittard and Franklin Central last year. So we'll see where they're at. Avon 23, I mentioned them earlier. I think Avon's going to be tough. They were, again, a team that really was hit by injuries last year in a couple key spots, including quarterback. So Jace Cameron back this year. And I think Avon, again, a team that, they beat Ben Davis last year early. So, they have the ability. It's just a matter of doing it consistently in a tough conference. And then I had Bloomington South 24 and Lafayette Jeff 25. And like I said, Jeff plays at Chittard week 1. So that will be interesting to see. And then Bloomington South, they lost in the 5A semi-state last year to Decatur, 24-13. But a lot of talent back for that Bloomington South team. That's probably 24 might be a little bit low for the Panthers there. But yeah, so then that's the Super 25. The teams I didn't have in there from last year that ended the season in it were Warsaw. I had them 15 last year at the end. Evansville Memorial was 16. Concord was 17. And then Fort Wayne Snyder 23. Those teams were not in the preseason rankings for whatever it's worth going into it. So, yeah, that's kind of our Super 25. And then, we had the USA Today. I'm not going to go through all the teams of that, but our USA Today preseason poll, put that together, and we'll do that throughout the season. I compile those. I get the votes from sports writers and sports radio sportscasters, TV people around the state, and they send those in, and then I compile those, put them all together on the weekends, and then something new we did last year and we'll continue to do throughout the course of the football season this year. The number one teams there, Brownsburg was 1 in 6A, Westfield was 2, Center Grove 3, LN 4, Crown Point 5, Warren 6, HSC 7, Fishers 8, Decatur 9, Ben Davis 10. And then in 5A, and I won't go through all these, but New Pal was 1, Cathedral 2, Merrillville 3, and then 4A, the Chittard, Heritage Hills, and Mishawaka were the top 3. 3A, Memorial, Lures, Gibson Southern were the top 3. Adams Central, Lutheran, Linton Stockton in 2A, and then Providence, North Judson, and South Putnam. A lot of north-south in the 1A poll. It's very confusing. It was North Judson, South Putnam, North Decatur, South Adams, North Miami. So a lot of north-south going on there in 1A. But yeah, so that's kind of how it sets up. Like I said, we got a lot of preview coverage, probably as much as we've ever done for football, just over the last month to 6 weeks or so. So check all that out. Super team stuff. Just all kinds of couple coaches confidentials, things like that. So we'll have obviously a lot more coming, but just wanted to kind of catch you up on what we had out and to go through that Super 25 as well. So I think it's kind of fun to do that and kind of power poll throughout the season. Some teams come up, some teams drop, and we kind of find out what's what. In this first week, I think it'll be pretty enlightening. I think it's going to tell us a lot. You don't put everything into week 1 because a lot of teams change obviously during the course of the season, but we kind of get a sense of where teams are at, I guess, right off the bat. So looking forward to seeing what happens Friday, and we'll have plenty more at IndyStar.com, so check it out there, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks.